Welcome to a new card process video with me. So today we are going to be using the Sunburst background thin cut from Close to My Heart, and we are doing this part of the blog hop that I am in. And I wanted to do a video process along with the cards just so that you had an idea of how they were made. So I am going to use this thin cut as a stencil, and I'm going to be using the multi liquid glue from Tombow. And if you put this on in a thin layers, you can see me doing here, and sort of give it a little bit of dry time and are really careful with it, you can make this a repositionable glue. That's kind of what it's designed for in an essence. So that's what I'm going to do here. You do have to do a little bit more dry time with your Distress Oxide inks than what I do so that it'll stick better, but all in all, it turns out to be a really cool card, as you could see in the preview clip. So as we set this aside, let's dry off my little area here and get all of that adhesive off so that we can work freely. When we are using this thin cut, we're going to use it as a stencil first. And so I'm going to cut down a panel that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Okay, and you can see I'm just testing the tackiness and sort of taking some of that off because I'm impatient and I want to go right now. Let's get out our Distress Oxide inks here, and I am going to be using Mustard Seed, and I'm also going to be using Spice Marmalade. So for the Distress Oxide inks, you can do a blending tool, or you can actually take the pad right to the entire background, and then you'll see me come in with a little blending tool right here and just sort of smooth out any heavy-handed areas. So I'm going to clean up this here, and now I'm going to use this as a stencil. So it does move on me a little bit because I didn't give my Distress Oxide background enough time to dry, so it's a little wet, and we all know that wet adhesive doesn't really adhere to wet things. So now, using those little windowed areas, I am going to stencil on my background, and it turns out so stinking cute. I cannot wait for you guys to see this. I just use a little brush and pull it on, and then when I peel it off, I'm going to blend out a little bit more after I spritz on some water. Now, when you spritz the water on, it kind of fights for room, like it's deciding whether the water is going to live there or the ink is going to live there, and it has this really cool effect. Next, I'm going to add some black shimmer from my black shimmer brush, and then kind of fade out some of those harsher lines with my little blending tool that I had originally. And I'm going to come in and just sort of ink through the sides. Let's dry this off a little bit before we adhere it to our card base and do a little bit of detail on the edges with some black ink and a little finger dauber. So I like adding little details to the cards so that they stop, but I really didn't want to do too much to this other than what the stencil provided me with, because I really wanted that feature to stand out, and I didn't really want to cover it up with a whole lot. So I'm going to get some black cardstock here, some Versamark ink, and some white embossing powder. It's the super fine detail kind. It's sold through Close to My Heart, and it's the Ranger brand. Now, a little funny story here. I didn't do a static anti-pouch tool for this beforehand, so you will see a little bit of splotchiness because of that. So it's really important to get one of those and use that beforehand. So this says Hello Summer. I'm going to end up cutting that sun off. Although it is super cute, I can use it for something else later on, I'm sure, or one of my girls will probably snatch it and use it in one of their little creations that they make. So I'm just using this as a guide and just cutting it as close as I can to the words, and I'm going to dovetail the end of this. I love that little feature there. This is great, but it needs just a little bit something, so I'm going to come in with a black shimmer trim, and I'm going to cut it just a little bit longer and have it hang over just a hair and dovetail this. And then I can trim off the excess on the back and add some 3D foam tape to my little sentiment piece here to make it pop. I like to pop it up just a little bit, but not so much so that it's undeliverable through the mail. And just line that on the left side here. Oh, here's where I come in with my edging on my dauber and my black ink. I'm just sort of filling in the blanks here, and if you're a doodler, you could totally come in with your ink pen and doodle here, or your black journaling pen. See the end result? It's like, okay, we got to make a card with that. So I'm just going to adhere this up here. I'm just using an ATG gun, and I'm going to come in with some black enamel dots, a couple of them, and the card's done. Yay! Okay, so let's finish filling in the black blanks here. So I'm going to come in with that mustard seed and the spiced marmalade one time again, and just sort of fill in those blanks that didn't happen when we were originally using this as a stencil. I'm going to spritz it with some water because we know we have to use that effect, right? Oh, and it turns out so cute. I just love it. Because I've got a little bit of glue on there, I have a little bit of resist going on with this, which you can see in the pictures at the end of the video. It shows up really nice. So let's cut down a card panel for this to adhere on. When I'm doing Distress Oxide, and I know I'm going to be doing water and stuff, I like to have a panel versus a card base for this to go on, because I'm going to be using water and then my card doesn't warp much. Here we go. And then I've got a lot of ink left over on my pad or my all-purpose mat here, so I'm going to come in and I've got some yellow on my fingers from that mustard seed, and I'm just going to mix that up a little bit and add it to that background, and it gives a really cool water boho effect, if you will, because we've already got some of those spritzes on there. Let's dry this off really nicely, and it doesn't take too long, just a couple of minutes. Of course, this is sped up for the viewing pleasures, and I love this black shimmer brush. Look at, I'm coming in again with this. I'm a little heavy-handed this time just because I felt like it needed some extra. And then we're going to add some liquid mono glue. I really like this. It doesn't bubble up. It doesn't you can't really see that's in there. Just keep your lines nice and thin. So we'll line this up on here. Look how cute that turned out. And just really working out those lines. And I like this because it dries clear, and some of it that does ooze out, it mixes with the ink in there because the ink is wonderful that just starts oxiding, and so it really shows like flares almost, if you will, from the sun. So I was going to use the June stamp of the month, and then I decided I need a happy birthday card, so I'm gonna come in with the really fun stamp set that has the little birds on it and the little balloons and things like that, and it's called So Tweet. It actually has thin cuts with it, but I didn't want to do the bird on this particular one since I'm focusing more on the actual features or actual thin cut itself as being a sun. So I'm just going to come in with the Happy Bird Day, and I'm going to use just that sentiment. We're going to do the same process as we did before. Black cardstock with that super fine detail white embossing powder. And we'll just trim that down and do a little inking around the edges here on this one. It just turns out really good, and it mixes nice and well. And it has like a muted color to it when it mixes with that Distress Oxide, that ink on the side. So when you do that, it's not going to be a real true ink. It'll be more like a charcoal just because it's a little muted because of the Distress Oxide. Okay, so this time I'm going to come in with some Flamingo Shimmer Trim, which I haven't used yet. And it blends so nicely in the background because that background color is actually a picked raspberry color, Distress Oxide. And that Flamingo Shimmer Trim, is just wonderful. It just goes so good. And then we'll add some 3D foam tape to this card right here, and it looks so good, a little crooked. And let's add this to our card base and just use that aqua mono liquid glue again. It doesn't bubble, it doesn't make your card wonderful. Look how cute that is. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you were inspired to play with this new thin cut, play with some stamps, and get creative today. See you soon.